and welcome to day 3 of Monetization Week. As the attendees start trickling through, let me just sort of refresh again the whole attention behind Monetization Week. We saw basically a lot of publishers being impacted in Q3 last year, Q4 last year, due to various reasons, whether it was search updates, it was just general macro trends and so forth. And we wanted to put this event together as it was still continuing in Q1, and people weren't bouncing back. We wanted to put this together to be able to help everyone share their collective experiences about what they're doing to make the most of improving their monetization. So fortunate enough to have our panelists on today. Our session today is around synergizing online and offline publisher monetization. Our panelists are Gabriella Petrova from PhoneArena and Radu Cotarcea, CE Legal Matters. In terms of the format for today, it's going to be broken down into two aspects. We've got our initial sort of presentation of the two arguments, the two sides of monetization, where Gabriella will go through the online monetization primarily through PhoneArena's expertise and specialty in affiliate and affiliate, whilst Radu will be going through more offline / events and a little bit of subscription as well that ties with online. And then the second part is after presenting, just giving you guys a bit of that background, going through a panel discussion around the sort of points that we can just try to bring everything together in a holistic view, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to propose here for everyone is to not throw your eggs in one basket. It's to be able to do brand building initiatives that can ultimately help you to become more resilient, more susceptible to try to pivot constantly. And so, yeah, obviously during that period, we encourage, as our team side that has posted, please feel free to post your questions throughout the conversation, including the mini sort of case that our panelists are presenting, so that we can answer if we can't see it as it's going on the presentation, or after the question period, so that we can make it as fluid as possible. We'll also be just to help engage and ask your opinion, so that we can share each other's perspectives, roll out a poll as well, i.e. whether we're going to ask about the different things that you're trying, so that we can see some commonalities between the attendees and help summarize that in our white paper, which is going to be coming out at the end of this, after the event, in addition to the videos that would be published, which will be sent to you guys as a priority, and then a couple of weeks thereafter will go publicly live. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Gabriella to help us lead the conversation on 360 monetization. Thank you.
Thanks, Vahe. Hi, guys. I'm Gabriella. I am the head of revenue operations at PhoneArena. Just give me a second to start my presentation. I think you should be seeing my screen now. So yeah, I'm the head of revenue operations at PhoneArena. PhoneArena is a digital publisher, and we create content about mobile tech, phones, tablets, accessories, and various technologies and services related to them. We've been in business for 23 years now, and I'm with the company for 10 years. Today, I will be sharing with you some thoughts about affiliate revenue and the opportunity it poses for publishers. Back in the day, when I started at the company, affiliate revenue was not a big thing for us. But then at some point, we decided to focus more on it, because considering our content and audience, it just sounded kind of natural. And within like 5 years period, we managed to scale that from roughly $2,000 a year to $1.5 million. Diving straight in, the key areas I will be going through today are the user need, the audience, featured products, content, commercial partnerships, and how to track and optimize the whole thing. The user need, everything starts from it. Three main pillars here: information, buying advice, and referrals. At the start, people obviously need information about the products that are available. If I am in the market to buy a new phone, I would need to know what phones there are and what I personally need to know about them, considering my habits and how I am intending to use that device. Then comes buying advice. How do I make a choice so that I'm confident with it afterwards? And are there any risks or specifics I need to be aware of? And then once I have made up my mind, I need referral. Which are the reliable sellers I could buy from, and which are the best offers right now? And these are the main areas which our affiliate project and affiliate content needs to satisfy in order to be successful. Starting with audience, it's important to figure out the audience interest categories. What is most read? Where is the greatest scroll depth? What's most engaging? Where do people comment most? Where does the publication authority sit with all of this? Could your publication consider itself an expert in them? Have you tested the products? Do you cover news related to them on a regular basis so that you could claim that you understand the bigger picture? Then in terms of traffic sources, how is the content you create going to reach the target audience? Which are your top performing traffic channels? Because even the greatest content is useless if it does not get in front of the people it was designed for. And also it's nice to have an understanding about the user base, regular users versus one-timers, because buying frequency may differ. For example, you cannot expect a regular reader to buy a phone every month. But if you're selling, say, groceries or office supply, it's quite a different thing. Buying intent could also vary based on spontaneous versus thought over buys. Once we have considered this, we can look into the products to be featured. The products need to present scale. And what I mean by it is, like, are the products you are intending to feature commissionable? An example from our context. In terms of phones, Apple devices, iPhones are very, very popular, but unfortunately, in the majority of cases, they are not commissionable. So in terms of commercial opportunity, there isn't much to do there. Revenue projections are extremely helpful. Could you expect, whether you could expect meaningful revenue based on readership, conversions, item price, and the commission rate that you have from your partners. Keeping editorial integrity is key. It's important for the user need that we mentioned earlier in the aspect of the user feeling confident with their choice afterwards. The publication's reputation and the reliability of its expertise should not be compromised if you're looking to create a sustainable revenue stream that's sustainable in the long run. And another thing that is important is to avoid bias, because we are not our readers. We should focus on existing user needs and scenarios rather than on personal convictions, and products should really not be dismissed for subjective arguments. On top of all of that, we can then consider the content that needs to be created, and that has to be a body of content in order to demonstrate expertise, giving the needed information depending on where the reader is in the buying journey, aiming to keep them on the site, and have suitable content to answer both upper and lower funnel questions. Interlinking content and suggestions, what to read, are quite handy here. For example, if I'm looking to buy a phone, at the beginning, I need content of the sorts of best phones right now. But once I've made up my mind, for example, I want to buy a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, I need some help to make the final decision, like what sort of memory size is suitable for me in order to move to the last step and buy. Buying intent could not could, but it does. It actually does differ depending on where the content sits in the funnel, in the user's buying journey. But you cannot go with just the lower funnel stuff, because then you will not have that body of content and you will not be able to demonstrate expertise and gain trust. The content types that the affiliate opportunities sit upon are mainly like two main categories: evergreen versus single deals. Evergreen content is the content that has a longer life cycle, but in order for it to work, it needs to be refreshed and supported regularly in order to keep it evergreen. While single deals, they serve quite a different purpose and target a different audience. They just give you the best opportunities during a particular moment in time, and you don't need to choose between the two. The best option is to have both, so that you could target a larger, a broader audience, so to speak. And in terms of offer representation, that should be visual and that should be pretty clear and focused in order to give the reader quickly the information they're looking for. In terms of partnerships, there are three types of partners you can go with: networks, retailers, and brands. Networks are the easiest entry-level choice, so to say, because they don't really have significant entry requirements in terms of turnover and audience volumes. And at the same time, they give you easy access to brands and the ability to build connections with multiple brands under a single MSA. Then come retailers, which might or might not be available depending on the region you're in and the vertical your content is related to. But if those are available, they actually have the greatest potential to offer the best consumer-facing deals and biggest price cuts. And lastly, brands. Those relationships and direct partnerships would only make sense if you can generate meaningful turnover, as otherwise, like the effort will not have a meaningful return for both sides. And prioritizing partners is important, minding the value for both the consumer and the business. And it sits on the main KPIs like click-through rates, conversions, average order value, and commission rates. It's important to know that commission rate is not everything. A partner offering a 30% commission could actually yield worse than a partner offering 5% for the same product. And that's related to many other things that are consumer facing in the last phases of actually the buying journey. And last but not least, tracking and optimizing. How does that work? There aren't many KPIs that are important to track, but they give you a pretty good insight and how things work and what can be done. CTRs, the click-through rate, they give you a good idea of whether the offer was compelling, whether it was presented well, whether it was a good fit for the audience. Conversion rates are mostly outside of publishers' control, but they give a good idea of how the partner actually performs, because poor conversion rates could be a result of poor checkout experience or some additional strings attached to the offer by the seller, which become known to the consumer once they are in the last stages of that buy. Average order value is the base for the earnings potential. Commission rates as I mentioned already, they are not everything and are only meaningful in the context of CTRs, conversion rates, and the average order value. And then last but not least, EPM, the earnings per mile. It could be per 1,000 page views or visits, and they give you a good understanding of the performance of particular content pieces. In order to properly understand performance, it is vital to analyze it separately for the different types of content, because it's not apples to apples. And if available, page level data and product level data could offer great actionable insights. And the last thing I will touch upon is the information flow and context, which is quite tricky here, because affiliate is, for publishers, affiliate is a cross-team effort. And for example, in my case, the revenue team that generates and analyzes the insights needs to make those insights and conclusions understandable to everybody involved in order to align on actions in a way that these conclusions are understandable to people with very different expertise and backgrounds, like journalists, SEO specialists, product people, and anyone else who might be involved in a way. And I think I will be wrapping up here. Thank you for your attention. I understand that we are barely scratching the surface of this big topic, but I hope this has been interesting and helpful to you.
Thank you, Gabriella. I'll pass it over to Radu just to present the offline case for the discussion.
Thank you, Vahe. I'll just switch over to my presentation real quick. Hoping it's on display for everyone. I guess Vahe will tell me if that's not the case. Hi, everyone. My name is Radu Cotarcea. I'm not holding Vahe against not being able to pronounce it. Very few people can. Vahe asked me to talk to everyone about how we've been able to monetize our publication into an alternative form of commercialization. So I decided to address everyone on how we built and how we leveraged, aka monetized our offline community into events per se. Specifically, and just to give everyone a bit of background, See Legal Matters, or CLM short, is a print and online publication for and about lawyers in Central and Eastern Europe. It's not a particularly exciting field. It's just one that we ended up finding a niche in ourselves. And we've been in the market for just over 10 years. We celebrated 10 years in December last year. Now, the obvious question is why we needed to develop a strategy to monetize offline, and why that particular focus made sense for us. First of all, it's probably everyone is here to attend the Monetization Week, because it is not a secret that monetizing publications in this day and age has its particular challenges. For us as a publication focused on the niche of the legal sector, and even more so specifically focused on Central and Eastern Europe, which is a set of 24 jurisdictions, how we define them, is particularly challenging because we operate in an industry that's not just very conservative, not very marketing savvy itself, but also faces a great deal of conservatism under the plight of so-called bar regulations that don't allow lawyers to advertise or promote themselves. So we don't just face the traditional challenges that most publications do, but we also have quite a bit of an uphill battle with our specific market per se. Now, in our mind, that was, an inherent challenge in the niche that we identified, but we thought if we build a publication and we gain traction, that problem should go away just by virtue of inevitably, if we build enough of a large platform, people will want to sign up and get visibility through it. What I'm showing right now on screen is a direct copy paste from our rate card. We've done well for ourselves. You see both traffic stats as well as social media stats. This was put together at the beginning of the year. The LinkedIn following has already just jumped 12.5 thousand people. So our reach is definitely there, and it should have made our lives easier in terms of monetization, but that was still not the case. And even more so, we're deemed a fairly authoritative platform. You see just a snapshot of some of the publications that have turned to our content and have used it in their own writing, both looking at sector-specific legal publications, but also general business or global publications that I'm assuming resonate with a good number of people, even outside of the legal industry. So despite that, we built the platform, we had the traction, we had the authoritative position, but we still needed to monetize it. So we realized that going about the traditional model of charging for subscriptions and charging for advertising is going to be a bit slow. So I decided to explore other business models. And just by virtue of the fact that it was an industry that I was exposed to at the time, by virtue of my life partner, I decided to look at corporate events, and specifically at companies such as Marcus Evans or the likes, who organize corporate events, and they seem to be doing quite well for themselves. And we looked at their business model. And what you see on screen right now are a couple of snapshots from a few of these companies that focus specifically on building corporate events and how they monetize things. In the very far background, you'll notice that they offer sponsorship opportunities. But one of the things that we realized that they do is they have differential attendance pricing for their events between two categories of people. The so-called buy side that you see in the most front up picture would be charged $398 for one particular event, whereas the sell side or the solution provider are charged absolutely considerably higher rates. So then, trying to replicate that model, for us, it became clear that we need to segment our readership and try to figure out how we monetize our own events should we decide to go through those. So what we did as a first step was actually segmentation. We went to our subscriber base. I'm not going to read all of the snapshot of the subscribers that we have, but we started stressing out specifically the fact that we have different types of readership in our own audience. Specifically, we have in-house counsel, lawyers working within large companies, Fortune 500 and the likes, both international as well as national champions across Central and Eastern Europe, as well as law firms, specifically law firms being legal service providers themselves. So we realized that if we take that exercise of segmentation of our audience, we can pretty much develop an identical model where we take the approach of segmenting our own audience, and we can put forward a commercial event the same way that the companies that we were modeling our events after were. So as a result, we came up with what we call the CE General Counsel Summit. The General Counsel is maybe a term of art for some of you. It's basically in-house counsel, senior in-house counsel. They have many different types of titles. They could be general counsel, legal managers, CLOs, whatnot. That's less important. What matters is we realize we can build an event focused around our in-house readership, i.e. we can build an event that brings together the so-called buying side into the legal industry. And we can also look to monetize not just those, but also monetize at a premium, the law firm side, i.e. the sellers, the solution providers, looking at the business model of those corporate events. Now, we did that from the very get-go, and it was a solid event, because the moment you put together a room of potential decision makers for a target group, then that target group is going to be incentivized to participate. But we also decided to tweak it over time. Specifically, we decided to minimize the extent to which we were monetizing the GCs, i.e. the in-house or the buy side, out of a simple assumption that, the more we have, the better the event will be, and the more bang for their buck those on the buying side that attend these events will actually benefit from. In fact, by now, we barely monetize it. We have a nominal fee. I think it was 20 euros at the last event for the buyer side, because we really try to minimize the commercial barriers that we have on that side altogether. And we, perhaps counterintuitively, eliminated the option for registrations on the so-called sales side, on the law firm side. Our thinking was that if we want to create a true general counsel summit, we wanted to fill up the room with GCs and have the room heavily be formed of general counsel. So what that meant is that we ended up restricting supply in terms of the spots available for law firms to attend. And by doing so, we actually were able to monetize at an even higher rate by virtue of selling not attendance tickets for these law firms, i.e. the buyers, but rather offering the opportunity to sponsor these particular events. And that also had the benefit of creating a paradigm where we're not just providing a service for an event with them, but rather we incentivized law firms to act as partners with us, because once they put up their brand name as a partner to a particular event, they would be directly incentivized to bring in their own attendees to work with us and support the development of the agenda and the quality of the event and so on and so forth. And one of the things that we've learned over time that is particularly useful is to nurture the community past the standalone offline event. And to do that, we've developed a few strategies over the years. First of all, we made sure that this is a traveling event. It would be very comfortable and very easy to always do it in Budapest, which was the location for the first event. But rather we change locations. We do it 1 year in Budapest, the next one in Istanbul, the subsequent one in Warsaw, and so on. We move the event throughout the region. The rationale there being that it allows us to tap into the local networks more and more, and we then carry part of that network forward to the new market, because it's easier for them to decide they're going to jump in a cab and join an event rather than commit themselves to flying over to an event that they've not seen in the past. The other things that we do is that we try to engage the buyers, the general counsel, via the magazine throughout the whole year, because having one event per year might be great, but it doesn't really help with brand awareness. So what we've developed as a strategy is that we give out free magazine subscriptions to everyone who does attend these events, thus ensuring that we stay present in their mind throughout the whole year. And we also involve them through expert contributions, including related to the event that they just attended, so that they're even more directly invested into the CLM brand and present into the CLM family throughout the year. And the last step that we took was to look at other components into the legal industry, which is that of rankings and awards. It is not something that we invented. It is not something that we sort of spearheaded. Those are just two examples on screen of other publications who do that even in our region. But what set us apart was the fact that we linked these with the actual General Counsel Summit. And we realized that as opposed to the publications that I showed you in the past that would put up these award galas that would be attended by everyone hoping to win, i.e. by buyers, by providers, our event was particularly successful because it allowed us to put together the communities that we've built for the GC Summit in the same room with all of these attendees for the awards galas and the rankings, which meant that not only do we provide the same networking value and the hope and the prestige that they will win the awards that other publications do, but it actually enhanced that networking and the bragging rights by virtue of all of the awards that they were receiving. All of a sudden, they weren't just receiving in front of their peers, but rather by potential clients of their own for the legal services that they've been providing. And that has actually helped us set apart quite a bit and increased attendance considerably on the awards gala side of things, as opposed to what we've been seeing other publications do. So just because ultimately there's a reason in this, and you guys want to sort of take away a few elements for this. We obviously operate in a B2B niche, legal services. So the main takeaway for that is that you definitely need to think about your segmentation in your market and try to look into how your industry or sector that you cater to can be segmented and how that is reflected into your readership base, and spend active effort into increasing your buyers side of things. Maybe even tweak whatever format you take with our approaches, where you try to artificially even at times increase your buyers' readership and attendance, just because that ultimately means more attention from your potential sellers side of your niche. And there's always solutions where you can engage your audience in community building, either by nurturing readership and engagement on an ongoing basis, but even involving them directly in terms of the content that you put forward if you do so on a strategic level. Now, in terms of B2C, in terms of commercialization for the client side of things, that's obviously even harder for you. But you can take a page from our book and try to minimize your focus on commercializing those elements and rather focus on the buyer side of your sector. And one of the things that you can do is try to build evergreen digital content. We're running closed loop events. We don't stream or record our events just because the nature of the sensitive area of legal service providers. But it's not uncommon for those events to be recorded, to be put up, and then ensure that you have that visibility in your B2C sector on an ongoing basis. And that's something that you can then add value further as potential sponsors to enhance your commercialization on that side. That's about it from my side. I'll pass it over back to Vahe to start the conversation on these.
Thank you, Radu. Thank you so much for sharing the blueprint there. And again, thanks again, Gabriella, for your side as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll, everyone. It seemed that when we did the poll yesterday, it was fairly interesting in terms of the types of responses we got. So I'll do that so we can get some questions initiated as well. But again, everyone, feel free to please go through and answer any questions you have. We're going to be fielding them, and we'll, in addition to my questions, we'll answer yours. So to get started, Gabriella, let's talk about the argument on affiliate online. How do you guys manage the reader funnel between the European and US audiences? I know that you have one particular persona, but is there a difference in terms of how you manage affiliate between the two regions, the continents? Sorry.
Well, yeah, and yeah, it's a tricky thing, because when you're a digital publisher, you obviously have readers from around the world, and you cannot satisfy everybody. And the approach that we have taken is first, we have identified the key geos, the key regions for us, and the approach could be different. But for evergreen content, the easiest way to handle it is to go with they're either third-party solutions, or some of the networks offer this service, that they can basically detect the geographical location of the person based where they're based, and switch the offers for them based on the pool of partners that you have. So that a person reading the same content piece, a person in the US would see one offer that is available to them, and the person in the UK would see another. This, in our case, this actually only works for the evergreen content, and for everything else, it's basically a choice. We need to decide which readers to create content for. We have separate content for the US market and for European UK market, where we manually make the distinction. And then in the end of the day, it's analysis, and prioritization.
Understood. Thanks for that. And Radu, on your side, an interesting point that you brought up that you're doing is making the event a traveling event. So and tapping into the network. So how did you come up towards being able to determine which countries would be the right, or the next sort of phases to go to the next event to?
Two informal sets of conversations. One is with the sponsors of the event. What is their next strategic market? What are they looking at further? So for example, we just finished an event in Warsaw, and everyone is excited about Athens and the Greek market booming lately. So that was a natural drive for us. The other set of informal conversations is ask everyone who's been attending and poll everyone the same way that you do a poll right now. Where would you like to go? The assumption is that the local attendance is always strongest. We try to identify locales that would be attractive for others as well. You know, putting events together in locations like Prague or Athens has its own appeal for people looking to combine a useful content-driven trip with a cityscape. So you focus on surveying your audience to what would be attractive for them.
So is there like a minimum threshold that you dictate after the sponsors, indication from sponsors, like a threshold saying, like, if we don't meet this number, then we can't sort of proceed ahead? Or how do you?
So you need to keep in mind our just like our publication, we're a niche publication. If we have an event of 200, 300 people, that is already a considerable success. That in mind, if out of the 200, 300 people that you have at an event in Warsaw, 40 of them already say Athens is exciting and they're looking at it already this year, that's already a very solid indicator that you're placing a safe bet for next year. I mean, it's always a bit of a shot in the dark. If it was a completely split vote, then we'd probably have to go to the whiteboard and try to factor in other elements. But so far, we've been very good at sort of getting informal feedback throughout one event for the subsequent one.
Understood. And thank you for that, Radu. Appreciate that. Gabriella, when we were having the chat a few days ago prior to the event, we sort of spoke about as well, in terms of determining success, because you were mentioning also in your presentation about the better yield, the importance of sort of planning the goal and going backwards. So I know you flagged a few key metrics for the commercial team, but how do you make sure that those few key metrics are effectively monitored? Is it through effective reporting? Is it through champions internally that sort of are earning each one of them? How does that sort of work in terms of make sure that the commercial team is on track with those particular performance indicators?
Well, it's a pretty difficult thing to do because it's difficult to get all the data in one place because the affiliate partners, the networks, the brands, and everybody, their reporting systems are usually very much seller focused. They are created so that they give good information to those that sell the products and not to the publishers that are actually featuring them. And due to that, different networks and different partners are sharing reporting in sharing very different types of reportings, very different KPIs, and it is yeah, it's a tough job to align them all. And we are working with a third-party partner. I will not share the name because we are not perfectly happy. So don't want give referral to anyone, but get understanding normalized in a way that it's comparable between partners. I think I lost
Gabriella?
you. I'm back. You can hear me?
I think you're back, yes.
Yeah. So first thing is to find a vendor who can help you to get the analytics straight and then start monitoring the thing, because the affiliate initiative it's an interesting thing because the quality of the work you do is easily measured through the performance you see. If you don't do things right, if you don't keep the standard, if you like let yourself not be very strict for a while, results go down right away, because people really care about, like, there are few things people really care much about, and their money is one of them, and where they spend their money and how they spend them is very important. So should you start doing the job you do in a really not great manner, results will drop like immediately.
Well, thanks for that. Let's shift gears a little bit. Sorry, let's just check in on the poll so far. Interesting. So we've got about 40% of our participants so far responding. In terms of the current monetization avenue, it seems fairly even across the board. So I put in events, affiliate, e-commerce, subscriptions, programmatic, services, native advertising. There's probably there's an other bucket. If anyone has an other bucket, please feel free to put it into the chat. It'll be quite interesting to hear what that is. But we're seeing like a one responder per question across the board. So it seems everyone's doing a fairly mixed indication there. We've got a few people also including some of the challenges and North Star metrics, but I'll need to end the poll, so we'll share some of those maybe in the next 5 to 7 minutes. But I will come back to that. But let's shift gears again and talk about essentially quality control. Now, obviously, being as part of the revenue team, what we're referring to as quality control is more about the balance between editorial initiatives versus RevOps or commercial team initiatives, and being able to indicate what's going to be the right balance. What do you see as Gabriella, starting with you, what do you see as the essential best way to go backwards, but also making sure that we're not, maybe you guys are working, the two silos are working together in unison for that?
Well, okay. It's well, it's the tricky part and the difficult part here is the different bodies that are working together, and you really need to up the quality everywhere. Yeah, it's not only in the revenue part, and it is very important. And as I mentioned earlier, it is crucial not to turn this into an 100% business initiative. And yeah, it's important to keep the balance between the editorial freedom and integrity and the business part of the deal, and yeah, align on quality and accountability on both ends. And in order to achieve it, you need to have understanding, and it is very important to have an owner of the entire initiative, because you have different wheels that are turning here. You have the revenue part, you have probably SEO, you have journalists, but everybody is looking for the quality from their own perspective. Like for me, quality would mean probably revenue. For the journalists, it would mean something else, like how the content is written, what the product is about. For the SEO guys, it would be interlinking. But the success of the project would be a mix of all of these and how they actually click together. And it's really important to have an owner who is overseeing everything and is giving the focus where to push more in particular phases.
And so thanks, Gabriella. And Radu, from your side, I know that you initially indicated that pricing was one of sponsored, like, sorry, non-audience. How can I say it better? The non-core audience that want to get there. I think you price differently. The pricing strategy is a bit different, and that's how you sort of potentially quality controlling, and the segments based on different ratios. But could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that point and sort of how you sort of look at quality controlling events, because that's obviously a beast in itself, and yeah, it's something that a lot of people spend a lot of commitment to attending as well.
Sure. Just to simplify the terminology and to be on the same bandwidth, the assumption is that we identified we can put together an event that has potential buyers and potential sellers in the room. Obviously, the success of that event then becomes to what extent you have generated business for those attending, i.e. the buyer, the seller side of things. And for the buyers, there's other elements involved that look into the quality of the event, the quality of the content put forward at the event, the quality of the networking, and so on and so forth. Now, in that paradigm where we've looked at other corporate event producers, and we realized that indeed it makes sense to monetize differently and have different scales of monetization between buyers and sellers. What we realized is it makes sense for us, exactly as a quality control mechanism, to go into an absolute extreme of it. Specifically, if I organize a general counsel summit and I announce to the world that I'm creating an event dedicated to buyers, then every single seller is going to be interested in attending in the room. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to have a summit of buyers, as the name would imply. I would have a summit where there are some buyers and the room is crowded with sellers. Now that doesn't, even if you price it differently, as we've seen people in the industry tend to do, you still have people with a direct business drive interested in being in the room, and people who are there potentially because they've been convinced by other elements, i.e. the quality or the content put forward into the conference. We decided that that's a gamble, especially in our industry, that, as I said, is quite conservative, and they have very limited routes of getting their brand out there, i.e. no traditional advertising or the likes. So events are a prime way for sellers to generate more business for themselves. So it would have been a very risky chance for us to put together a so-called general counsel summit that would have been very easily 50% buyers, 50% sellers into that room. And that would not have been a great experience for anyone. The sellers would have not been happy because there would have been a lot of competition in the room. The buyers would not have been happy because all of a sudden it's a shark feeding frenzy and they're stuck in that room for 2 days, or they just opt to leave, destroying the event altogether. So that's why we went into the opposite route, into the extreme route of scrap monetization of the buyers in the room to maximize them being present, and intensely limit the opportunities for sellers to be present. That means that we can charge them at a premium. And that means that, you only have 2, 3 in the room as opposed to the 500 that could have potentially been interested in attending. You can compensate the differential by charging them an absolute premium, and they will be happy to pay that premium because you've offered them a platform where they're not really competing with others, but rather they have a safe space of 2 days where their potential buyers are relaxed. They're not constantly flooded with business cards. You've set up a system where by design, you've ensured that quality control just by ensuring the right ratio for sort of harmony, so to speak, for those 2 days of a conference.
Thanks, Radu. I think that you did great in terms of putting on the same simplified terms. I was trying to get to that point that you said, because a lot of industry events, even digital media ones, publishing ones in general that I've been to in the past, like there has been that case of a lot of sellers out there, and that sort of turns off actually the audience of the buyers, the audience to actually come to that event. So that's a really good tip that you've shared. Thank you so much for that. So I think let's go quickly on to 2 more key points. But while we do that as well, Noval mentioned a comment that as a media owner, I only focus on SEO on brand keywords, but article SEO is difficult because of keyword competition type. That's fair, definitely. So I think on the Evergreen side, you both really touched the point on the fact that Evergreen is helping you to increase the shelf life of your offerings, and also making that a key product. Is that something? I'll break it up into 2 questions. Maybe I'll start with you, Radu. Does that sort of funnel back into helping you bring people back to the publication? How does that Evergreen or in general events help you funnel people back into the publication?
So we do several things. As I mentioned, we can't record the event themselves and publish the recording somewhere. That would be amazing. And anyone who's not operating in an industry that wouldn't allow them to, like us, I strongly encourage you to do that. Even this session, I'm assuming you're going to use this recording and publish it somewhere, because that is content that just stays out there. It allows me to potentially share it afterward and promote everything further and increase that marketing visibility further. What we do, just because we're limited in our ability to sort of record and publish, we do have obviously a full team of dedicated staff writers. They are present at the event, and what they do throughout the event is twofold. One, they take notes and they report on all of the content being shared, which allows us to then publish a series of articles sort of summarizing what's discussed on stage, some of the key points that were taken away by the audience, and so on, which allows us to sort of promote the event even after it is done, and ensure that it's present in the mind of our target audience throughout an extended period of time, not just as a one-off. It also means that we can engage into that community building that I was referring to, because it gives us an excuse to circle back to everyone who is at the event, run their quotes by them, stay in touch with them, tell them that we want to write an article. They will most often be pleased and happy and honored that they're quoted as an authority figure on a specific topic, and that article is subsequently published, gives them an opportunity to engage with it and share it with their own networks and expand upon it. So these sort of micro interactions allow us to then constantly stay in touch with and constantly stay on the top of the mind of our target audience, so that in 3, 4, 5, 6 months time, when we start finally looking into next year's event, we will have been present with them. It's not a one-off interaction, and then 12 months from now we invite them again and hope to God that they had a strong enough of an experience that they will not just remember us, but are going to be willing to travel to a whole new country just for the sake of it. So that's the way that we are leveraging content in terms of building that publication, and so building that event forward. And all of those exercises ultimately also build up the brand credibility of the publication itself. Because it's one thing to have a stellar event of 300 people, but it's only the 300 people who were present that know that. If you get thorough in generating content as a follow-up to that event, that shows your entire market what you've done and what they've missed out by not attending. And it builds that sort of fear of missing out for subsequent editions, which definitely helps your future editions.
Thanks, Radu. And just quickly as well, Gabriella, on the aspect of evergreen content as well. How does that tie back into sorry, in terms of we spoke about, you know, the team building aspect and understanding the capacity. I know that's not sort of the editorial, that's not your side of the business, but to be able to work, how much is the revenue side involved in terms of being able to dictate with the editorial team on how much evergreen has to be produced and sort of work backwards on the goal? I think that was a key point that we sort of spoke as well earlier, because that obviously ties back into being able to dictate the amount of traffic you can grow, the amount of revenue to scale up the affiliate, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of the revenue team, here we are playing mostly the role of analysts, like the people who get the data and understand the business side of this data. And it's based on data that we make the decisions, like what performs better and where more resource needs to be involved and focused. Because yeah, based on opinion, it's really we've tested that as well. A/B testing is a big thing for us. It just doesn't work, and for some products it might work better with more evergreen content rather than single deals created on the spot. For other products it might be vice versa. It also depends on the periods of time, like when it happens. Seasonality is a big thing for affiliate, but what we see right now, the situation right now is changing a lot. It's very dynamic, and whilst SEO is important, it is not the sole thing. It's good. It's important not to be the sole thing that the publication relies on. And with evergreen content, for example, evergreen content for us are product reviews. We are using them as an entry point for the audience that we target, because like let's face it, for now at least, AI cannot review products. AI cannot test them, cannot hold them, you know, cannot do stuff with them. And this is where the real expertise and the unique approach of a publisher can come in handy. And then once we get those readers, it's our job to find a way to source them to other content, to engage them more, and yeah, retention and everything else.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Gabriella. Two quick rapid fire questions. There's some particular feedback that I think both Radu, you and Gabriella can address. One of the questions that so I closed the poll, and in terms of the question for number 2, it was, what was your single challenge in generating more revenue? We had one of our respondents saying, client is not interested in paid collaboration since they are doing their own organic promotions in their respective platforms. Now, looking at partnerships, if we have a situation where they think, you know, there's always the case of justifying the value of what you're offering and potentially trying to get them to work with you versus doing their own initiatives or doing with someone else? What's the best way you can pitch them to or approach that situation to make them reconsider? Whoever would like to start, Radu or Gabriella, whoever would like to start on that.
Just because Gabriella's muted, I guess say I'll happy go for it. I mean, my approach, if I'm given the opportunity to have a sales pitch, quote unquote, or sales messaging to that individual, my general approach is it's always healthy to have a marketing mix. You know, any content that you generate or any content that you try to put forward because it's part of your marketing strategy requires some time investment into producing or some form of resources from your organization to produce. Restricting yourself only to one solution because that is, or one platform because that is the one platform you are using or have been using, seems limited. And I always encourage people to, at the very least, try other platforms as well, including our own, of course. Now, that can either be done as part of your sales messaging, or what we do, for example, is if we notice someone, just to give a simplistic example of what I mean, if we notice a law firm put forward expert content on LinkedIn or on their own website, what we do is we offer to publish as a sample on ours, that particular piece that catches our attention. And a couple of weeks later, we circle back to them and say, here's the readership, here's the traction that we received on our platform. Congratulations on the piece, which sends a message to them of here's an untapped readership that you haven't been using, that you might want to consider using. And by providing that data, we might actually make them consider what is the type of reach on the platforms that I have already been using, and it urges them to compare the two. Now, I'd like to believe that our numbers stand for themselves, and many times, you know, that conservatism of we're already using platform X gets outweighed, but it's of course an exercise, and it's either part of your sales messaging or your marketing messaging, but you always want to encourage people to leverage content that they've used time and resources of any sorts, in fact, to generate, to then turn to you and potentially throw you into their marketing mix and see what happens. Even if that means, you know, freemiums, give people a free sample just to experiment it. That's never a bad choice in my mind as a one-off here and there.
Thanks, Radu. Gabriella?
Yeah, I agree with Radu here about the marketing mix and the extra exposure that each channel is actually giving you. In our case, the question would look like a brand, for example, that is selling their products through their own shop and is not willing to pay affiliate commissions to publishers. But again, for the brand, we publishers and our audience would be an addition to the marketing mix. And there are two ways which make us important. One, aside from the exposure, is that with our expertise and advice, we help consumers make a buying decision, which they don't often do by simply looking at the product listing and specifications. This is one. And the second thing is that usually brands, it is cheapest for a brand to sell through their own shop because they don't have any extra cost, like they're not paying commission to Amazon or to some other big retailer. And by paying an affiliate commission to publishers, they actually get much cheaper leads compared to those they would get for the same product from Amazon, considering the fee that they would pay there.
Thanks. Thank you so much for that, Gabriella. We've got a few minutes left, so I think we can sort of circle the conversation. Any quick comments or thoughts on the changing traffic situation, how that sort of offline and online, in terms of building that a little bit of resilience? Any quick tips and advice on both of your sides that we can look at mentioning to the audience?
I'll start first here, just shortly. Like, I don't think anybody has the answers right now because the situation is very dynamic, but at least at the moment, I believe the right track is to keep diversifying and try to diversify, not to depend on a single source of traffic and audience, so that you have the ability to get more time in order to figure out what's next.
I 100% agree. I think may it be part of your monetization strategy, may it be part of your marketing strategy. Not having all of your eggs in one basket is always critical, especially with how fast-paced the digital space is. You might think you have a great LinkedIn group today, and then LinkedIn decides to pull the plug. You might think you have a great SEO strategy today, but then the algorithm changes. I'm just not a fan of going 100% in terms of spending your resources in one place. And if I use that in my own sales strategy, try our platform as well. I think it's wise for us to consider that in terms of how we monetize as well. Always try different avenues. The event for us has been exactly that. Try not to live off of subscriptions only or advertising only. Try something else. It ended up being a blockbuster for us, and that's always key. Always be on the lookout for different avenues and opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you. With everyone, I know that. Sorry, it sounds like we're finishing on a somber note, but I think it's more to highlight to say, keep diversifying, and stay optimistic. So with that, Radu, Gabriella, thank you so much for your input, for your insights. Thanks for everyone that provided input into the polls as well. That gave us a lot of conversation pointers as well to continue the conversation. A quick call out. We do have our next, after we finish our monetization week, we do have our next event on covering. So tomorrow we have a fireside chat. A fireside chat building optimization team. So actually discussing how to build revenue teams with Suzanne and another colleague called Radu, who's the founder of Reflective Media. And on Friday, we'll be concluding with another presentation by myself on first-party data strategies. So we hope you can all make it to the next couple of days. I know that's been a little bit of a marathon, but I hope we're giving you guys value, and we'll continue to do so. And with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.